All right, captured. You have a much more sophisticated capture than I do. I just analog pen and paper.
Well, it's funny, like, because I just watched you do that, and I'm so interested to. I don't know if you've used that Wacom thing they've got collaborated with the Magic
Yeah,
Leap,
I have used the walk-up tablet for
because I
sure.
because I use their one that digitizes paper, and I'm in love
Yes.
with this merger. And have you seen Brett Victor's Dynamic Land stuff up there in San Jose?
Yeah. Yeah, I went to go see it about a
Oh
year
gosh,
ago in
I
person.
still haven't seen it in person. So I think that there's such a big, because you just wrote in a paper journal, and I'm when I'm thinking about my applications, I'm thinking about including paper journals in them, and working
Oh,
with the
sweet.
analog paper, because now we've got these cameras on the device, so it can read your strokes. We've got these digitizer pen type things, which means we can get
Totally.
vectors in, and then that means we can extrude. So if you draw a nice square in your notebook, you can pull it out into 3D space, and it's still a square in
Yeah.
your notebook, but it's also a cube in 3D space, and merge that back together because the tangibility of paper. I want to. What did you think about Dynamic Land? How did you? That's so
Oh,
interesting.
it's great. I mean, it's so natural to be able to just look down and write on something and then look back at you. And I went like when like if we were to release the Wacom, it's sort of as a the driver, I think I would like totally use it all the time. And you said you have a device?
I use the Intuos, the big giant one, so I can use big giant graph paper,
Yeah,
and I
the big
love
one.
it. Oh, I use big giant graph
Yeah,
paper. I
awesome.
digitize it. It turns into a vector, and then I can rearrange it as a vector, and I print it back out on sticky paper, so then I can put it in
Oh, that's
notebooks.
sweet.
So then I colorize it.
That's
I
awesome.
send it through a process, because what I'm learning is, especially what I think all of us are doing too, is we're going into more and more meta zones. So having a process where you iteratively refine, like a plant would refine a nectar or something like this, where you go through your thoughts. I mean, we do this already, but it would be really fascinating to me to really deliberately study it, and try to create a really, really grounded, powerful, like, manifestation technology that could go all the way from a napkin to a 3D printed robot. you know, like in
Totally,
one
totally.
pipeline, which would be, of course, made of so much stuff. But I'm just
Right.
curious. I'm really curious about hearing about Dynamic Land, though. Like, just your thoughts of what you thought about it, or if you.
Oh yeah. So my thought about it was I was like, man, I wish I could experience this with our device. You know?
Yeah,
Um that was my biggest thought. That's how I could sum up the thought.
interesting. That's been my thought from the outside. And I sent Brett Victor an email, and I said, he didn't respond, but I sent him an email, and I said, I want to start one in San Diego, but I want to experiment with, or help you start one. I don't think I could, endow it just yet,
Okay.
but and experiment with using.
Talk. I'm gonna do a wild thing. I'm gonna see if through the mobile companion app I can share with you my video from Dynamic Land. But
Oh,
anyways,
wow.
go on.
Let's try it. Yeah, that's pretty cool. So I sent them, and just, because what comes to my mind is that they're using projectors in the roof. And so if you kind of got the Dynamic Land environment, I think you could get it to go into the headsets, and then triangulate between the headsets and create the same basic projector, layer, if you like, but then it's just on your head. So instead of it being in the roof, it's on everyone's faces, and then it, does all the planar detection and everything, which is already built into the Magic Leap. So I feel like it's possible, and that's why I'm so interested in the kind of pen to paper, pen to tablet reality, because I think that's a really natural sort of expression. Because also, what I studied in grad school, I got super down in a rabbit hole at the end of my time there, and I just started researching stylus based interfaces, because I got a Windows
Oh, cool.
Surface and I started drawing on it. But immediately I ran off the edge of drawing, because I'm like, well, I don't want to just make graphics. I want to make code. I want to make a direction. I want to make an animation. I want to, and the pipelines fall on their face. So then that's when I discovered Ken Perlin, because I found his Chalk Talk software. Have you ever seen him do that
Yeah,
demo? Yeah,
definitely.
it just blew my mind. Like, I got it running on the Surface, and it was so, it's a silly demo sort of thing, but just to have that possibility of to do a simple thing can evoke something more complicated, and you can string simple things together to make something more. It just But doing it in that interface of drawing just seemed like the most humane thing I'd ever seen, like, in terms of computation. So even for Dynamic Land, I'd love to go backwards and be able to say anything expressed as a graphic in this world can be interpreted as code by the computer. because I don't see there's enough work on the back. There's a lot of work on going from code to graphics. We get it. Everyone can do that. I mean, I'm not discounting anyone's work, but it's been done. But what
Oh
isn't
yeah,
happening as much is the other way, is where it's a graphic and it turns into code. Not an interpretation or a scan or a tag or a database entry like data, but I mean a real genuine code. It turns into some kind of expression of what it would take to make that, rather than just a description of it. But,
totally.
so we could be able to
Yeah.
have the
Have you ever
computer.
used
Uh-huh.
like a coding environment like Max MSP
Yes,
or even
yes,
like
exactly.
Scratch for
Yes, I've
kids?
used MaxMSP, and there's another one called VVVVVVV. There's like four
Yeah,
V's, and yeah, those are really fascinating. And even like some of the node editor stuff that's inside, Blender and Unity and stuff. But I'm like, but I'm
I
like,
use
oh,
Scratch for little kids.
yeah, but that's the thing. It always then it stays bounded. It's some kind of graphical thing or it's a kid thing. I'm like, what's this, in the same style as the avatars? Maybe I've seen so many people do the kid version of that. What does the adult, grown-up science version of that look like? Because I became really fascinated with like Feynman diagrams and stuff. Have you ever seen like all those Edward
Oh,
Tufte
they're
examples? Well, I mean, if you can
they're
just
gorgeous.
draw the Feynman diagram in an environment, imagine magic Harry Potter paper. I draw the Feynman diagram, it does the simulation right there, and I string multiple together, and I'm doing a simulation of a system with the diagram. No math involved, no code involved, but the real physics is there because he found a way to represent the physics graphically. And so that to me is the
Totally.
future of thinking, is that we would think with a dynamic medium, like, as Brett Victor is saying, but I'm just feeling like we can do it now. Like I'm really trying to also, I want to like spark people to, you know, to try this more. Like I don't feel like anyone's going to own this concept. This is like an
No, we've
awakening for
got to.
us as, because now it's our computer, right? It's no longer a giant thing that's used to calculate our, trajectories for artillery or bank statements. It's also an artful medium now on its own. And so that is really exciting too. I really hope everyone keeps feeling permission to, be, yeah, more and more artful with it and less, you don't have to carry on the back. I was appreciating, in the LeapCon itself, the, you know, it seems like a heartfelt desire to kind of leave behind some of the worser parts of, human history and such things, and like to try and find out what it is to be each other in this now moment rather than focusing so much on what we have been with each other before, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. It's a new start, definitely. And it has to take like new ideas, radical forms for sure.